Chilling code struggles. The glitch and the pain. Sophia's hands trembled as she stared at the code on her screen. The project she led at her tech firm had run into an inexplicable error, a glitch that made no sense. But it wasn't just the code that tormented her. The stabbing, searing pain deep in her abdomen was back, and this time, it was unrelenting. Diagnosed with adenomyosis, Sophia's condition had worsened, the pain synchronized with the growing stress of fixing the glitch. Each time her body flared in agony, it felt like the error in the code was laughing at her, mocking her inability to fix it. Her team thought it was just burnout, long hours, and pressure. But Sophia knew better. Something about this glitch felt unnatural. And her pain, like a dark presence, was growing more intense, more personal, as if the code itself was feeding on it. Pain and fear. The code on her screen flickered again, mocking her. Sophia pressed her hand against her lower abdomen, trying to ease the stabbing cramps that tore through her body. The lines of code blurred, her vision clouded with pain and exhaustion. Each surge of agony from her adenomyosis seemed to sync with strange bursts in the program, as though the code was alive, breathing, pulsing with her suffering. Despite the debilitating pain, she pressed on, feeling the glitch morph under her fingers. It wasn't a technical issue anymore. It was a malignant presence. Late at night, when the office was empty, she began to hear whispers, faint at first, barely noticeable, but growing louder with each failed attempt to fix the code. The shadow between the lines. The whispers followed her. On her monitor, strange characters appeared where there had been none before, symbols that made no sense in any known programming language. The pain in her abdomen intensified as she leaned closer to the screen, her breath hitching. Sophia could feel it now, an intelligence, a presence buried deep within the code, growing bolder as her pain increased. Suddenly, the screen flickered, and she saw something. A shape, a dark shadow darting between the lines of code. Her heart raced, and the pain in her stomach clenched so tightly she gasped, her body nearly collapsing under the weight of it. The glitch was no longer just an error. It had a will of its own. Pain beyond the physical. Sophia's adenomyosis had always been a physical torment, but now, it felt deeper, as though the pain was emanating from the code itself. Her body and the system were connected, bound in some unholy union. The glitch had become part of her, twisting her insides, feeding off her misery. She tried to explain this to her team, but they dismissed her claims as stress-induced paranoia. They couldn't see the truth. But Sophia could feel it, the malignant energy crawling under her skin, pulsing in rhythm with her heartbeat. The code was alive, and it wanted more from her. The glitch grows. Each attempt to fix the glitch seemed to make it worse. Her colleagues couldn't see it, but Sophia could feel the presence growing stronger, as though the more she struggled, the more it fed off her pain. Her adenomyosis was in full flare, her abdomen a knot of pain that refused to release. The whispers in the office grew louder, almost chanting her name, taunting her as she sat alone, clutching her stomach. Late at night, the lights flickered, and shadows twisted into shapes she didn't recognize. But worst of all was the feeling that the glitch, this malevolent force, was waiting for her to break. Haunting vision. Sophia's nightmares grew darker. She dreamt of wires coiling around her body, pulling her into a dark abyss filled with glitching code. In her dreams, she screamed as the pain in her abdomen tore through her like a hot knife, but there was no relief. The code consumed her, melding with her flesh. When she woke up, the pain still lingered, as if the nightmares were becoming real. Every night, the entity in the code grew stronger, more aggressive, and her pain intensified in response. Her body became the glitch's battleground, its relentless attacks mirroring the chaotic errors in the program. It wanted more than her code. It wanted her. The entity reveals itself. One night, Sophia caught a glimpse of something on her screen, a shadowy figure woven into the lines of code. It flickered for just a moment, but that was all it took to confirm her worst fears. The glitch wasn't just a technical error, it was alive. And it was watching her. Sophia's adenomyosis flared with such intensity that she nearly blacked out. The code flashed before her eyes, turning into indecipherable symbols and shapes, a language she couldn't understand. But the pain, the deep, throbbing agony that coursed through her abdomen, told her everything she needed to know. The entity was real, and it was feeding on her suffering. The possessed code. The more Sophia worked, the more the glitch twisted, evolving beyond anything she'd seen before. Her adenomyosis attacks became unbearable, crippling her with every error the system threw at her. The entity in the code seemed to enjoy her suffering, using her pain as a way to grow stronger, more present. Every time her body screamed in agony, the lights in her office would flicker, her screen flashing disturbing images, shadowy faces, glitching shapes, symbols that pulsed in time with the pain in her gut. The entity was possessing the code, and it was slowly possessing her too. The dark bargain. Desperate, Sophia began searching for answers beyond the technical. Late into the night, she stumbled upon a cryptic article detailing an ancient program designed to bind the digital world with the physical. It wasn't a glitch. It was a curse. Her condition, her adenomyosis, was the key. The entity had latched onto her pain, using it as a conduit to manifest itself. The more she suffered, the stronger it became. Sophia's mind raced with fear. Could her illness be the final link in this dark chain? The twisted connection. The next time her body erupted in agony, Sophia barely managed to stay conscious. She clutched her abdomen, feeling the pulse of the entity within her. It was growing stronger, feeding on her, using her as a vessel. The code on her screen twisted and writhed like a living thing, responding to her every wince, her every gasp of pain. The more she tried to fight, the more the pain flared, sending white-hot flashes of torment through her body. The entity was no longer confined to the code. It had invaded her, melding with her pain, her suffering, turning her into a part of its sick, twisted design. The haunting presence. Sophia's condition worsened. She couldn't escape the pain, couldn't stop the entity from growing. It was inside her now, in every cell, every nerve, manipulating her body as easily as it did the code. Her team still didn't believe her, still thought she was overworked, exhausted, but they didn't see the dark shadows that lurked in the corners of her office. The entity's whispers had grown louder, more insistent. It wanted her to give in, to stop fighting, to let it take control. Sophia knew that if she surrendered, she'd lose herself entirely. The descent. Her nightmares became unbearable. Every night, Sophia dreamed of a digital world where she was trapped, her body contorted in unnatural ways, her organs twisted and crushed by lines of code. The entity would whisper to her, telling her that her suffering was inevitable, that the pain was its gift to her. Sophia woke in cold sweats, the pain in her abdomen mirroring the agony of her dreams. She could feel the entity inside her, waiting, lurking, growing. It was only a matter of time before it took full control. The final resistance. Sophia was weak, her body ravaged by pain, her mind on the verge of collapse. But she wasn't ready to give up. She knew the entity fed off her suffering, off her adenomyosis, and she was determined to find a way to starve it. She scoured the ancient texts she had found, looking for a way to sever the link between her body and the code. The entity, sensing her rebellion, retaliated. Her abdomen flared with the worst pain she had ever felt, nearly sending her to the floor. But Sophia held on, her fingers trembling as she began typing the final solution into the code. The showdown. With every keystroke, the entity screamed, its digital tendrils thrashing through the system, trying to stop her. Sophia's body was racked with pain, her adenomyosis flaring to unbearable levels. Her vision blurred, her heart raced, but she kept going, her fingers moving faster than ever before. The entity fought back, distorting her screen, making her hallucinate twisted, nightmarish images. But Sophia's resolve was stronger. She finished the command and hit enter. The release. There was a moment of silence. Then, her screen erupted in light, the code flashing and disintegrating before her eyes. The entity let out a final, guttural roar before disappearing into the void. Sophia collapsed in her chair, her body weak, her abdomen still pulsing with pain, but the connection had been severed. For the first time in weeks, she felt a strange sense of relief. The entity was gone. But as she looked at the remnants of the code, she knew the scars it had left behind would never fully heal. The haunting echo. Though the entity was gone, the pain in her abdomen remained. Sophia's adenomyosis had always been there, but now, it felt different. The glitch had left its mark on her body, a deep, lingering ache that wouldn't go away. She had won the battle, but the war between her body and her mind was far from over. Sophia stared at the blank screen, her hands trembling.